Now that you have become familiar with the story of our common countryman, the Trans-Caucasian Kurd, I already consider it my duty to make a confession and, hence, before continuing this first chapter, which is by way of an introduction to all my further predetermined writings, I wish to bring to the knowledge of what is called your pure waking consciousness the fact that in the writings following this chapter of warning, I shall expound my thoughts intentionally in such a sequence and with such logical confrontation that the essence of certain real notions may of themselves automatically, so to say, go from this waking consciousness, which most people in their ignorance mistake for the real consciousness, but which I affirm and experimentally prove is the fictitious one, into what you call the subconscious, which ought to be, in my opinion, the real human consciousness, and there by themselves mechanically bring about the transformation which should in general proceed in the entirety of a man and give him, from his own conscious mentation, the results he ought to have, which are proper to man and not merely to single or double-brained animals. I decided to do this without fail, so that this initial chapter of mine, predetermined, as I have already said, to awaken your consciousness, should fully justify its purpose, and reaching not only your, in my opinion, as yet only fictitious consciousness, but also your real consciousness, that is to say, what you call your subconscious, might, for the first time, compel you to reflect actively. In the entirety of every man, irrespective of his heredity and education, there are formed two independent consciousnesses, which, in their functioning as well as in their manifestations, have almost nothing in common. One consciousness is formed from the perception of all kinds of accidental or, on the part of others, intentionally produced mechanical impressions, among which must also be counted the consonances of various words, which are indeed, as is said, empty, and the other consciousness is formed from the, so to say, already previously formed material results transmitted to him by heredity, which have become blended with the corresponding parts of the entirety of a man, as well as from the data arising from his intentional evoking of the associative confrontations of these materialized data already in him. The whole totality of the formation as well as the manifestation of the second human consciousness, which is none other than what is called the subconscious, and which is formed from the materialized results of heredity, and the confrontations actualized by one's own intentions, should, in my opinion, formed by many years of my experimental elucidations during exceptionally favorably arranged conditions, predominate in the common presence of a man. As a result of this conviction of mine, which as yet doubtlessly seems to you the fruit of the fantasies of an afflicted mind, I cannot now, as you yourself see, disregard this second consciousness, and, compelled by my essence, am obliged to construct the general exposition even of this first chapter of my writings, namely, the chapter which should be the preface for everything further, calculating that it should reach, and in the manner required for my aim, ruffle the perceptions accumulated in both these consciousnesses of yours. Continuing my expositions with this calculation, I must first of all inform your fictitious consciousness that, thanks to three definite peculiar data which were crystallized in my entirety during various periods of my preparatory age, I am really unique in respect of the, so to say, muddling and befuddling of all the notions and convictions supposedly firmly fixed in the entirety of people with whom I come in contact. Tut, tut, tut. I already feel that in your false, but according to you, real consciousness, there are beginning to be agitated like blinded flies, all the chief data transmitted to you by heredity from your uncle and mother, the totality of which data, always and in everything, at least engenders in you the impulse, nevertheless extremely good, of curiosity, as, in the given case, to find out as quickly as possible why I, that is to say, a novice at writing, whose name has not even once been mentioned in the newspaper, have suddenly become so unique. Never mind, I personally am very pleased with the arising of this curiosity, even though only in your false consciousness. as I already know from experience that this impulse, unworthy of man, can sometimes even pass from the consciousness into one's nature and become a worthy impulse, the impulse of the desire for knowledge, which, in its turn, assists the better perception and even the closer understanding of the essence of any object on which, as it sometimes happens, the attention of a contemporary man might be concentrated, and therefore I am even willing, with pleasure, to satisfy this curiosity which has arisen in you at the present moment.